This is the topic on a case study of the Challenger Space Shuttle tragedy. This tragedy happens in 1986. If you recall, at that time there is a space shuttle, and a space shuttle is actually a spaceship that they launched from US that with the rocket attached to the space shuttle, it will bring the space shuttle to the space. Then the rocket itself will actually dismantle from the space shuttle, and the space shuttle will move in the space, and the astronaut will actually move from the space shuttle in the space to do whatever work that they need to do. And then after they have completed the mission, they will fly back the space shuttle into the orbit, into the Earth, and it will land on Earth itself. Now, in this unfortunate incident that happens in 1986, the space shuttle Challenger was launched on 28 January, and about 80 seconds after the launch, the space shuttle exploded, killing all the astronauts on board. So what happens? Okay, from the investigation, it found that about 80 seconds after the launch of the space shuttle, there is this O-ring seal in the rocket booster that failed at the lift off. And this ring seal is very important because the malformation of this ring seal actually causes the explosion of the space shuttle itself. So there was, like all big tragedy, there will be a inquiry or big investigation commissioned by the government, right? And just a bit of background on these O-rings, right? It was already a known problem as early as 1970s, right? They know that it is less safe, alright, than some of the other alternatives, but the other alternatives are more expensive. So they decided to use these O-rings, alright, and that decision itself was quite unfortunate because it resulted in this space shuttle that was exploded, right? So even the night before the launch, there were some problems with the temperature, right, of the launch period, and they were deciding whether should they proceed with the launch of the space shuttle. But because there was a shortage of time and they were in a rush with a very time deadline, they actually decided to continue with the launch, right? So during the investigation of the explosion after that, there are actually some very experts, who demonstrated on TV that, if you use this O-ring and you put it in a very cold temperature, it actually becomes quite brittle, right? And this shows that, it's actually not appropriate to use this O-ring for the space shuttle, right? And of course, in the urgency to launch the space shuttle, they ignore the safety issue, which is potentially disastrous, right? So what do we learn from this case study on ethics of engineering? What we learn is, alright, as engineers, they have to be very careful in using proper products and equipments for their work. If you get a cheaper alternative, if the cheaper alternative is not good enough, they should not use it, right? And the other learning point is, sometimes everybody will be very rushed for deadlines, but you should not compromise on the safety. In this case, because the deadline is very rushed, so they actually compromised on the safety and they launched the space shuttle, and that resulted in the unfortunate death of the astronauts. There will be a discussion question here at the end of the lecture, alright, and this discussion will be discussed in the workshop itself. Thank you.